inspiration comment. We claim and believe it was Edison's, not Einstein's.
I'm sorry. I'm sure you're right.
Senator Chambliss.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Carter, as I hear you talk about the average age of the workforce in the acquisition department, and I think about the average age of the United States Senate, we're both headed in that direction, I guess.
That's off the record, by the way.
We're all dealing with experience, Mr. Chairman.
That's on the record.
Mr. Sullivan, your statement relative to the cost of this airplane being unknown is not new. You've testified to that effect over and over, particularly last year as we were going through the defense authorization process as well as the appropriation process and with the ongoing debate over the F-22. You noted in your written statement that DOD does not have a full comprehensive cost estimate for completing the program. You validated that statement again today, and in fact, in April of last year, you made a statement on NPR that when all is said and done, that the price of the nearly 2,500 F-35s could approach $140 million for each plane. You still stand by that statement?
I frankly right now don't remember having said that. I'm not sure what you're referring to. But at any rate, no, I don't think that doesn't sound right.
Okay. Would you concur with the Jets estimate that Ms. Fox alluded to relative to the plane in 2001 dollars, I believe, Ms. Fox, you said?
2002, sir.
$2002 would be in the range of $80 million. Is that a fair statement in your opinion?
Right now, I have numbers here that are then year, so it would be apples to oranges, but the average procurement unit cost that we've calculated is about $112 million.
Okay. Well, you've answered my question because that was going to be my point. When we talk about today's dollars,
right,
we're looking at somewhere $112 million, and that's an average cost.
Yes.
And that's assuming that the perfect storm occurs and that every timeline is met and the test phase is conducted within the times that we've talked about here. Finally there, Mr. Sullivan, let me ask you about this timeline of reducing 30 months of testing down to 13 months. This is a very sophisticated airplane. We know that. You've had experience with other weapon systems at the Department of Defense. Do you know of any other weapon system that has been able to reduce its testing time from 30 months down to 13 months?
I think just to qualify that a little bit, it's an increase to an existing plan, and the way that they came about that, the pullback was by adding new assets. So actually it's an increase, a net increase. It seems relatively optimistic to me, though. I mean, I think it will be a challenge for them, especially given this aircraft is laden with software, and I think that's going to be one of the long poles in the tent.
Senator, could I just observe in that
Sure.
regard that the total testing program is not going to span in excess of 60 months. The question was whether we would extend from 53 months, which had been planned as of about a year ago, to 80-some months versus expand from 50-some months to over 60 months. 60 months is in line with past experience in these kinds of complex programs. So I hope that clarifies what the duration of the testing program is going to be.
Right. I understand that. Dr. Carter, in your written statement, you state that the current IOC dates for the Marine Corps and the F-35 is 2012, the Navy 2016, the Air Force 2016. Is that correct? Dr. Carter, that's a 2-year delay for the Navy and a 3-year delay for the Air Force over what was advertised only a month ago. Isn't that right?
If you're referring to testimony given, I'm not quite sure what the baseline is. It certainly is an increase over what what I'm saying today is an increase over what you've heard in the past, because the services have taken the revised Jet 2 estimate as our realistic, the most realistic plan we can give them for when we'll deliver them jets, and then they have done their separate things with respect to defining IOC, so they have adjusted their IOC dates in accordance with the change in the program. So I'm sure it's different from what has been said before.
Why did it take OSD over a year to validate the jet report of October '08?
There were actually two separate jet reports, both of them valid now. I think what happened.
Both of them were basically the same, though they reached the same conclusion.
but exactly. What made the second one, although it had the similar content, more serious, Senator, was that it was a year later. So the problems noted in the fall of '08 had continued into the fall of '09. So it was reporting essentially the same dynamic going on on the assembly line, but since it came a year later, it was saying that this has been going on not just for 1 year, which was what the department knew in October '08, but 2 years. And 2 years is much more serious than 1 year. So same content, but a year later, you're still getting the same news. You really need to be more worried than you were earlier.
When did you become aware of the '08 jet report?
Shortly after I got into office, which was a few months before, it was around the same time that the Deputy Secretary of Defense ordered up a new jet estimate, recognizing that the '08 estimate was serious. Bill Lynn, the Deputy Secretary of Defense, said we better do it again. It was done again in October by Ms. Fox's, or under her leadership, and it showed what it showed, which is, whoops, this wasn't just something that it was true in October of '08. It's October of '09. It's still true. That's why it was more serious this year.
Yeah, and it was that '08 report pretty widely known throughout the Department of Defense?
I certainly was known to my office. I believe it was. My understanding is it was also briefed to the Congress last year as well, so I think it was pretty widely circulated.
Well, my concern is that during the debate over the F-22 last year, two issues were front and center, one being that the cost of the F-22 had gotten way out of line. The last contract on the F-22, the last lot, was $140 million per copy. Certainly that's $28 million difference in what Mr. Sullivan estimates that today's dollars is going to be for the purchase of the F-35, but it's not materially different when you consider that the F-22 has significantly more capability, particularly from an air superiority standpoint. I'm curious as to why that wasn't talked about during the debate last year on the F-22. Do you have any recollection of that?
I can't, because I wasn't speak to that. I wasn't in office at the time. I do know from the records what transpired after the first jet estimate, which was that Secretary Gates added, recognizing that there had been this poor performance in the program, added $476 million to the FY10, said, oops, we better adjust our budget in FY10 to take account of the CAPE estimate. He did not adjust the entire out-year budget, as we are doing this year, because he only had the first jet estimate, which showed that there was trouble going on for a year. This year, knowing that trouble's gone on for 2 years, he directed that we adjust the budget to reflect the CAPE estimate, not only in this year, 11, but throughout the out years. So it's a more serious action taken in response to more serious news, which is a second jet estimate that says the same thing that the first one did a year earlier. So he took actions in both years. They were different actions, but proportional to the information he had at the time.
Well, I've got some additional questions, Mr. Chairman, I want to submit for the record, but I think it's pretty obvious to all the panel members how serious this issue is to us. We're committed to this program. It's a great airplane, and we've got to have it. And we, Ms. Fox, don't want to go down that trail that Senator McCain talked to you about of reducing the buy. We can't afford to reduce the buy. We just had testimony that there's the reduction in tactical aircraft for Northcom has already caused us to have to call on the Canadians. And if we don't get these costs under control, then who knows where we're going to go. But we can't do without this airplane. The assets of this airplane are so superior to any other asset that we have outside the F-22. And with the Russians now coming out with an airplane that they say is comparable to the F-22, and it didn't even mention the F-35. They assume it's superior to the F-35. It's imperative that, that we continue down the track of trying to get these costs under control, and I appreciate all of you working as hard as you have and being as frank as you have with respect to this program. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Chambliss. Senator McCaskill.